Okay, then I'll start with my presentation. So this is the second alumni presentation. And now that Lucas talked about life in the industry, I decided to tell you about my path into research. So basically, this is the other path that many Coxies take. And my path has the subtitle with absolutely no exciting twists and turns. Because you can see here, my CV is quite straightforward. After starting school in a small town near Osnabrück, I started my Coxie Bachelor right after school in Osnabrück. Then I started my Master right after the Bachelor. I started my PhD right after my Master, now studying in Bremen, but still living in Osnabrück. And if everything works as planned, I will finish my PhD next year. We'll see how that goes. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed. And more or less unnecessary facts that you might want to know about me. If I didn't say this already, my name is Lisa Marie, but Lisa is just fine. I grew up just 20 minutes from Osnabrück in a small town called Bramsche, and I'm still living in Osnabrück in the Altstadt, in case you ever want to meet up, I don't know. And for those who think I do look a little familiar, I'm that girl from the Studiengangsberatungsfilm about cognitive science, if that ever crossed your path or crosses your path in the future. I did that while I was still studying in Osnabrück. And the last random fact, I love sleep and dream research. Now that's basically just a hobby. I did that a lot in my bachelor studies. If you ever get a chance to look into it, I highly recommend. Okay, so now the more interesting part, which is about my time as a Coxie. And Lucas and Arthur already told you a lot about the study program itself. I really enjoyed hearing about life at the Institute now and about what my former colleagues and other students are doing now. So about me, I majored in neurobiopsychology and artificial intelligence. And in my time at the Institute, I worked as a mentor for the bachelor students for 2 years. So I remember organizing the Freshie Week in, I think, which was 2015, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, so I've had a lot of fun in the study program. I met great people, and I really enjoyed my time there. Two other important points, which will explain why I took this path, is I loved tutoring while I was a student. I spent 2 years tutoring both Introduction to Artificial Intelligence and Computational Linguistics, which I don't know if those courses are still mandatory, but they were in my years. I love teaching. I highly enjoyed talking to all the other students, and yes, so that was a big part of my studies. And then the second big part were my thesis projects. So I worked on my bachelor's thesis for a whole year. And again, for a whole year, I worked on a research project for my master thesis, which I did in the institute that Arthur introduced to you earlier. And for me, it was great diving deep into a topic, and I loved concentrating on the same research topic for a while until it's really solved. And yes, as much as you can love a bachelor or a master thesis, I think I really enjoyed the research. And because of that, I decided to go into research at a university because, one, I just loved the research projects, and two, teaching was always one of my passions. And so how about my job now? I already mentioned that I'm now at the University of Bremen. I work in a lab that is called the Cognitive Systems Lab. And what we do is very, very different. I think we're a group of 17 or 18 PhD students and postdocs. And we have a wide range from speech synthesis, where people try to synthesize speech from just EMG electrodes in the face, to dementia research, to what I do, which is more of interactive systems. But what combines all of our research is that we build human-centered technologies, somehow based on different biosignals. So that can be, as I mentioned before, EMG signals or EEG signals, or like Arthur mentioned before, FNIS systems and things like that. And we try to interpret these signals. My job would be called wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter or wissenschaftliche Mitarbeiterin. And what that means is basically you get paid to do research. That research is usually in the interest of your institute or the professor that you work for. Of course, you can choose the exact studies that you do to some degree. And in the end, you try to publish work in the name of your institute. On that way, you might teach some classes if you want to or if you have to. And if you're lucky, at the end, you get to finish with a PhD and get to call yourself a doctor. Most of the people that I talk to take about 3 to 6 years or a little more than that, depending on how much you can work on your own projects to finish such a PhD. And what I think are necessary skills if you try to pursue a job like that is you should be fairly good at organizing yourself, because that's one of the key issues, which you will see later in my talk.
Lisa, I think you're muted.
Is it working now?
Yes, you're back.
When did it stop working?
Like 2 minutes ago, or not even.
Okay, so as I said, you might get around teaching if you don't want to do it. Other than that, you should be able to write up fairly good English, because a huge part of your job will be publishing papers and writing your thesis or things like that. And mainly your responsibility is doing research. So that's the biggest skill you need. Typically, for me, looks like this. So I do code a lot. I do an experiment every now and then. Sometimes I write a paper, and I get to travel a lot, which you will see in a minute, because usually when we publish things, we get to travel to cool places and present our work at conferences. So ideally, research should look like this. You start with a very new, innovative idea that is very helpful for whatever topic you're working on, and then you design and perform a study, and you plan with 50 great participants that are completely cooperative, and every experiment works well. And then you start writing a paper, you explain your motivation, explain what the study was about, you write down your results and why they are important. And then you submit this paper to a journal or a conference, and this perfectly fits your research topic. And then you just wait for an acceptance, which is based on other reviewers that are passionate about the same topics as you are. And then you get to travel to a cool place, because then you can present your work at a conference. But as the headline suggests, it's not really. So talking from my experience, you start by discussing about 1,000 ideas again and again with supervisors and colleagues. And all the ideas that you have either been done before, or they won't really lead to any results that you need. And then finally, you come up with something that might be helpful and is kind of in your interest. You start programming your study, and you debug again and again and again. And while you're starting to record participants, you still have to debug because something goes wrong or something changes about the system. And then you try to find as many participants as you can, which probably are your own students and your friends who have to do the same experiments over and over again. And then once you've done all the experiments, you think you can chill because you think you've got plenty of time to write a very clear and structured paper. But the truth is, if you have free time as a PhD student, there's always a voice in the back of your head telling you should be. There's really never a time where you don't have things on your plate that need to be solved. But then you thought your results are not what you expected. You realize you don't have as much time as you thought. So in the end, very last minute after working night shifts, you submit something to a journal or a conference that kind of fits your research topic, or at least you hope it does. And then you wait for acceptance based on reviewers that remotely connect to your topic. And if it doesn't get accepted, you review your paper and you submit again, you wait. And then lucky at the end, you still get to present at a conference, a cool place in the world. And it would be very easy if it was just that really you have several projects going on all at the same time, and sometimes you have to throw in some teaching and other bureaucracy, which is like funding and project proposals and things like that. So organizations have to be very focused on keeping your project straight and knowable. You have to remember that there's also a PhD thesis waiting for you somewhere at the end. And but if you're willing to keep up that, and if you're interested in research and very passionate about your topic, I think it's a great thing to do. Otherwise, I wouldn't have chosen this path. So now, is a PhD something for you? I think to conclude, what you need is, patience, because one thing you learn very fast, and I think you'll learn that in your bachelor and master project too, is when you think you can finish it in 3 months, like make it double. It will cost you at least a couple of months extra because nothing goes as planned. You need to have a high frustration tolerance, so things never go the way you expect them to. Something always goes wrong. I think for my first big project, the computer that I programmed on, the mainboard crashed on the day of my first participant. And some things just, you can't even plan these things. They just go wrong. You need to be organized, as I said before, so don't ever lose the overview of your projects. And the most important thing is you really have to have a high research interest. So if you care about the topic, you can motivate yourself to stay focused and keep working on this. But if you don't, I've seen a lot of people just, lose their mind over everything they have to do. Okay. Now, last but not least, for those who do care, what is my research topic now, my PhD? That my theme will be attention systems of reality. And if I have to put down in one sentence, the goal is to adjust the interface of augmented reality devices, which are these where you don't see your reality around you at all, but it's a glass screen in front of you that projects the object to your surroundings. And I try to adjust the interface to fit to the current attentional state of the user, and by that avoid distractions that could be caused by the system. And to do that, I use EEG measurements and what is called a brain-computer interface, which then uses machine learning algorithms to analyze the EEG data in terms of attention and then use the attentional state to adjust the interface. And that's basically my research topic. Okay. Before I get to your questions, I'm gonna just quickly do the same thing Lucas just did and give you some advice for your time as a Coxie. Find something you're passionate about, and don't force yourself to stick to something you're not passionate about. I mean, of course, do the mandatory stuff, but really there's so many different options, and dive into the things that you think are most interesting. I personally enjoyed all the freedom that I have, and now that I'm working, I highly appreciate all the hard skills that I learned, like working with an EEG system, coding, all the statistics that we learned, while I hated them in my studies, I really now know why they help me in my daily job. And yes, don't be shy with experimenting. And as Arto already suggested, look into as many institutes and projects as you can. Okay, that's all from me. So now I'm going to look at the questions. Okay. Do I consider continuing further into becoming a professor? I would love to stay at a university from my current perspective. As I said, I might be finished next year, and I think I might just make a short trip into the industry just so I know what I'm talking about. Since right now I've only been to a university ever, and all I know is university research. I think I might just try industry, but I can definitely imagine coming back to a university. And I mean, working as a professor is like the ultimate goal one day, if that's even an option. But I do consider it, yes. And as I know, women are still much underrepresented at this high academic level. Yeah, my professor that I do my PhD with is actually a woman, and I loved that when I applied. So, but yeah, we are underrepresented in this position for sure. Have I always been good with languages, or have I done a longer stay in an English-speaking country? Thanks. Yeah, I stayed in the United States for 6 months, but I think the study program in English also helped it, because I was forced to read a lot in English, do all my presentations in English, and it gave me a lot of confidence in the scientific language. Do I have any tips for improving my English? During the study program, I think it does kind of happen by itself. There are a lot of international students. A lot of times when you're with them, you just talk in English, you do your presentations in English, you read the papers in English, as I said, you read the English literature. And for me, while I was studying, I sometimes looked at videos from English-speaking people. Those are the main tips that I have, or just go to an English-speaking country if you have the option. If you're a PhD student of Uni Osnabrück, but doing the research at Uni Bremen, and if you're publishing your paper, which institute? Sorry, if I didn't make that clear, I'm not a student at the University of Osnabrück anymore. I'm just living here, but I am at the University of Bremen working at an institute in Bremen. So, but which institute would the paper belong to? Usually, I think with papers, it's handled in a way that every author writes down his institute that gave him the research option. So if I do my experiments in Bremen, working with their systems and their computers, I would definitely write down them as my institute. How do you navigate looking for potential PhD programs? Talk to people. You meet a lot of people while you're studying. You know, former students maybe. Talk to them if they know anything, because personal experience is the best reference. If you read descriptions, they can be very confusing. They can be very misleading, and they don't tell you a lot about like the personal experience of being in that program. For me personally, I'm not in a PhD program. I just have a PhD project. So I don't have courses or anything. But there are graduate schools that are very, very interesting and very cool. But I think if you want to navigate through them, personal experience and talking to the people that are already enrolled in programs or doing a PhD in that institute is the best idea. It also helped me a lot when I tried to decide whether I stay at the University of Osnabrück for my PhD or not. I talked to other people and tried to make an informed decision based on that. Best of luck on your PhD things. Yeah, we'll see how that works out with Corona and stuff. How do you see the potential of the research you're working on as part of the industry as a whole in the future? I don't know what industry as a whole refers to, but I mean, I'm working on brain-computer interfaces, which I think are so interesting. I think it's just crazy to think about what might be possible one day if they improve. And some of the ideas that people have are just so fascinating. So with the things that I specifically do, I'm just hoping to improve this technology or this possible technology of augmented reality. I think it's a great technology. I think it has its downsides. I think the distractions that it causes are just way too big. And is it like new? Oh, sorry, I'm gonna finish my last. And I'm just hoping to make this type of technology available for more people and like for more users, because currently it's really just a research thing. Is it like Neuralink? I'm not very sure what this is, so I'm gonna Google it. Yes, it's like Neuralink. So if I Googled it correctly, then Neuralink is developing ultra high bandwidth brain machine interfaces to connect humans and computers. Brain computer faces in general are measuring brain waves, decoding whatever they measured, and then using the decoded information to adjust the computer to whatever was in the brain waves. That can be used in various ways. That can be used for training. It can be used for just interface adaptation. You can think about maybe for medicine when doctors are connected to brain-computer interfaces that measure their attention and concentration and workload, and then you decide whether they're still able to perform an operation or not, and all kinds of interesting things. And I think that was the last question. Yeah, I didn't put down any contact information, but I think Justin wants to upload the presentations, so I'm going to put it on the slides afterwards in case you have any further questions later or want to get in touch for whatever reason. And then thank you for having me. I really enjoyed listening to your comments, and I hope you have fun in your study program. Enjoy it.